Our lead tonight is about the war in Ukraine. Kyiv started its counteroffensive in the month of June. The general consensus is that it's not going to plan. There are no major breakthroughs yet. Russia has not toned down its attacks. So what's going wrong? Well, the US has shared an assessment, and remember, this is the biggest Western ally of Ukraine. US intelligence says Ukraine's counteroffensive will fail to meet a key goal. It was supposed to give Kyiv a decisive edge, but that's not happening, not yet. So what's the way forward? More weapons for Kyiv. They will now get American F-16 jets. Meanwhile, Western leaders are also talking about a compromise. Will they force Ukraine to negotiate, and will Russia play ball? Tonight, we'll discuss all of this and more. First, let's tell you about Ukraine's setbacks. What does the American assessment say? The focus is on a city called Melitopol. It is in the southeast and under Russian control. Melitopol was a key priority for Kyiv, a principal objective. Ukrainian forces are outside this city. They're trying to make advances and take control, but America believes that may not happen. Now, why does Kyiv want Melitopol? Because it is strategically significant. The city is called the gateway to Crimea, and Crimea, as you would know, was a part of Ukraine until Russia took it by force in 2014. Now, if Ukraine wants to take Crimea back, it must take Melitopol first. Two important highways intersect here. It also has an important rail line. Russia moves military personnel and equipment through it. So controlling it won't just give Kyiv territorial advantage, it will give them strategic advantage too. The takeover will hurt the Russian military. It will disrupt their supply lines. But America thinks Ukraine won't be able to do this. They've already used up a lot of resources on this front, both troops and weapons. And now the fear is that they may not have enough to keep going. So they're getting the F-16 jets. Washington has given the green light. Denmark and the Netherlands will supply the planes, but it won't happen in a hurry. They will not be pressed into service immediately. First, Ukrainian pilots must be trained for these jets. The training will happen in Denmark. It should start sometime this month. Now, Kyiv admits that the whole process will take time. So the F-16s won't be seen in action until 2024. What will Kyiv do in the meantime? Keep fighting. That's what Ukraine's foreign minister has said. He agrees that the offensive is going slow, but he also says no matter how long it takes, their priorities have not changed. They want to retake every inch of their land, and they will need more weapons to do that.
But
the truth is that until we have won, we will need more. We need to move forward because war is a reality, and in this reality, we need to win. There is no other way.
Give us more time and more weapons. That is the message from Kyiv, but some in the West are running out of both. Nicolas Sarkozy, the former president of France, has weighed in. He says there should be a referendum in the disputed areas. I have a quote from what he said. The Ukrainians will want to reconquer what has been unjustly taken from them. But if they can't manage it completely, the choice will be between a frozen conflict or taking the high road out with referendum strictly overseen by the international community. This is what Sarkozy is suggesting. Paris and Kyiv were quick to reject this idea, but Sarkozy is finding takers elsewhere. Earlier this week, we told you about a NATO official, the chief of staff of the NATO Secretary General. He too proposed a compromise of a different kind, though. He said Ukraine should give up land for NATO membership. Kyiv came down hard on NATO for this. The official had to apologize, but he refused to completely rule out the idea. Then back in the month of May, President Emmanuel Macron of France had spoken on similar lines. He said if Ukraine did not meet its military objectives, Europe should reassess its support. The West may have to negotiate with Putin. That's what Macron said. Now, if you join these dots, you will see where this is heading. Is the West nudging Ukraine towards a compromise of some sort? Because on the ground, the risks increasingly outweigh the gains. Today, a statement came from Alexander Lukashenko. He's the president of Belarus, also a key ally of Vladimir Putin. Lukashenko said he's ready to use nuclear weapons if needed. Remember, Lukashenko is hosting Russian troops and Wagner fighters in his country. He's allowed Russian troops to attack Ukraine from Belarus. In the month of June, he also took the delivery of Russian nukes. And now he's issued a warning to the West. He said if there is quote-unquote foreign aggression, Belarus will respond, and I'm quoting again, respond with everything they have. And that includes the Russian nukes. So as things stand, the conflict is frozen. Ukraine is not making the gains it should have made given the material and military investment that it has received from the West. Nuclear threats continue to be made, and the West is toying with the idea of a negotiated settlement. Ukraine is rejecting the idea for now, but it doesn't really have much elbow room. And now let's talk about some geopolitical games. China wants a foothold in West Asia, and it has found a new way to win friends and influence the region. That new way is defense deals. China has been quietly making inroads. In the last decade, Chinese arms to West Asia, arms sales, have jumped by 80%, 80. America has taken note. It is the biggest supplier of weapons to this region, and it seems to be feeling threatened. So Washington is making overtures. US officials have spoken to their counterparts in West Asia, and they have a simple message for them. Do not buy Chinese weapons. Why? Because they will not work with American hardware. You won't be able to integrate them. So it's better to stick with made in America. That's their argument. But you see, these are technicalities. They often do not influence political decisions, and arms deals at the end of the day are political. Also, Chinese weapons have another draw: lower cost and better deals. Beijing is offering better deals and no lectures on human rights. It certainly helps. The US realizes this. Earlier this year, an American general spoke to lawmakers in his country. His name is General Michael Kurilla. He heads the US Central Command. In his testimony, he described how China's approach is different. Let me read out a quote from what he said. They open up their entire catalog. They give them express shipping. They give them no end-user agreement. And they give them financing. Basically, there are no strings attached when you do deals with China. That's what the general is trying to say. For decades, Gulf states have been major buyers of American weapons, but now they're drawn towards Chinese gear because the process is easier. They don't need to convince Washington. They don't have to wait for approvals from the US Congress. They don't have to suffer lectures on human rights while also paying big money. They can deploy Chinese weapons wherever they like. They can use them however they want to. No preconditions, no rules to follow, plus the delivery is quick and the financing is flexible. So it's no wonder that China is winning more deals. They got their first opening in the 2010s. Saudi Arabia and the UAE wanted armed drones. America was reluctant to give them, so China swooped in. They sold the drones to these West Asian powers. It was their USP. Light and low-cost combat weapon systems. That's what China sold. From 2010 to 2018, China sold weapons worth $760 million to the region, to West Asia. $760 million. How does that stack up against other players? In the same time period, 2010 to 2018, Russia sold weapons worth $8.6 billion. That's 11 times more than China. What about the US? $35.2 billion worth of exports, 46 times as much as China. So the US is miles ahead of others. And going by these numbers, they have no reason to be worried. And yet they are, because China is expanding its footprint. They got their foot in the door with low-end weapons, and now they have a solid foundation in the region. They're going after the bigger deals. Look at this report from the month of May. China was negotiating with Saudi Arabia and Egypt. What do they want to buy? More sophisticated weapons like air defense systems, fighter jets, suicide drones. That's the kind of stuff America would hesitate in sharing with West Asian powers, but China has no such limitations. The value of their deals is going up. Look at Saudi Arabia, for example. They bought a lot of weapons from China last year. The Chinese media reported about it. They said Riyadh is buying armed drones, hypersonic anti-ship missiles, and counter-drone platforms. What was the value of this deal? $4 billion. That's much more than the $1 million deals that China closed 5 years ago. But again, these are claims from Chinese mouthpieces, so take them with a pinch of salt. Having said that, there is no question about the appeal of Chinese weapons in West Asia. Beijing is not just selling arms, it is also offering collaboration. In the month of March this year, Riyadh and Beijing signed an agreement, a joint venture to make UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. China's third largest state-run firm was involved. They'll help make UAVs in Saudi Arabia. And the US is worried about all of this, about interoperability, for instance. But if the present trend continues, They won't have much of a choice. West Asia is taking to Chinese arms, and while the Americans are far ahead right now, Beijing is catching up fast. Our goal on this show is pretty clear and simple too. Give you the news, context and analysis. We try not to become the news ourselves, but sometimes we just can't help it. Today is one of those days. The Economist has published an article on Indian media's coverage of diplomacy, and it mentions me by name. It also talks about our network. But unlike The Economist, we won't get personal. We'll stick to facts and arguments. Now, credit where it's due, the article gets one thing right, just one. It says Indians and the Indian media have become more interested in foreign affairs. Whether it's the war in Ukraine or the coup in Niger or the mass shootings in America, we're more interested. And you would think that's a good thing. But The Economist disagrees. Listen to what they've said. The new media focus on India's role in the world tends to be hyper-partisan, nationalistic, and often stunningly ill-informed. Do you know what's stunning? The level of Western arrogance on display here. Here's what The Economist is basically saying. Indian media is covering foreign affairs, but they don't know anything about it. It's an insult wrapped up as analysis. Reminds me of British colonial officers. You may remember their argument from the textbooks. It's not that you don't deserve self-rule, it's that you're not capable of it. This Economist article is the 21st century update on that. You cover foreign policy, but you don't know it. That's what they're saying. So who does? Certainly not The Economist. This is the same agency that defended the invasion of Iraq. Look at their headline, The Case for War. In 2002, The Economist said its readers have two options. Let me quote. To give up and give in, or to remove Saddam Hussein before he gets his bomb. Painful as it is, our vote is for war. Now, I agree that Indian media has several problems. But guess what we have never done? Voted for war. Is this the stunning expert analysis that India lacks? Around 200,000 civilians died after the US invasion of Iraq. 0 weapons of mass destruction were found. Was that not ill-informed? And it wasn't just The Economist. All the so-called leading papers got it wrong, like the New York Times and the Washington Post. They supported the war in Iraq. I have another example for you. China. In 1999, China joined the World Trade Organization. The Economist was thrilled. Listen to what they said. WTO membership requires a strengthened rule of law so an emboldened judiciary might one day be able to challenge party decisions. I wish I had one of those reality show buzzers, because The Economist could not have been more wrong. No court has been able to challenge the Communist Party in China. But there's more. China's membership of the WTO has the potential to change the dynamics of a political system that looks out of date. Absolutely. The dynamic has changed. Just one problem though. It has changed for the worse. China is now ruled by its most authoritarian leader since Mao Zedong. I could go on, but you get the point. The Economist has got plenty wrong. It was wrong about Google. It was wrong about digital music. It was wrong about the 2008 financial crisis. It was also wrong about the Eurozone crisis. Yet they call the Indian media stunningly ill-informed. I must say, full marks for audacity. It takes a special skill to be wrong so many times and still criticize others. The Economist should probably publish an article with all their mistakes. And spoiler alert, they have. It's called To Err is Human. Let's come back to the article though, the one they've published now. Towards the end, The Economist has some advice for the government of India. Rein in your media, that's what they're saying. If not, it will affect India's relations with the West. So much for the freedom of press. This article sort of disproves the point it makes. Yes, we have defended India's position on Ukraine, also on Pakistan and on China, but it's not because of partisanship. It's because the policy makes sense. Defending India is not the same as defending a party or a government. If only The Economist had done some research. India's opposition and government are on the same page when it comes to Ukraine. They back the same policy. And let's be clear, this is not about hyper-nationalism or partisanship or anything else. It's about arrogance. Western media can criticize India all they want to, When they do it, it's freedom of press. But when Indian media criticizes the West, it is ill-informed. If this isn't arrogance, what is? The Economist says, we taunted Europe by calling them weak and dependent on America. Should we apologize for quoting the President of France? Because Emmanuel Macron said, Europe should not become America's vassal. And what does vassal mean? A subordinate to someone else. The thing is, India doesn't need lectures on diplomacy from The Economist. We have 3rd century manuscripts on military strategy and foreign affairs. 3rd century. People in the US were figuring out agriculture back then. So the interest may be new, but our worldview and ideas are not. And speaking of unreliable partners, Pakistan's cricket board is one of them. On the 14th of August, they posted a video on social media. It was a tribute to Pakistani cricket, the great players, the great moments, all of it. But guess who was missing from that video? Imran Khan. If you follow cricket, you know why this is controversial. Pakistan has won just one ODI World Cup, only once in their history. Back in 1992 in Australia. Imran Khan captained the side. He top scored in the final. He picked up 1 wicket. It's the greatest moment in Pakistan's cricketing history ever. Every Pakistani has seen these pictures. Imran Khan carrying the trophy above his shoulders, but none of that made it to the clip. Imagine the BCCI making a video on Indian cricket with no Kapil Dev and MS Dhoni in it. Can you imagine the backlash? That's exactly what happened in Pakistan too. Some of his teammates led the way, like Wasim Akram. This is what he posted on social media. Political differences apart, Imran Khan is an icon of world cricket and developed Pakistan into a strong unit. PCB should delete the video and apologize. This is what Wasim Akram said. I must say this, Imran Khan's cricketing friends are better than his political friends. At least they're not jumping ship. As for the cricket board, they did listen to Wasim Akram. They posted an updated video. This one did feature Imran Khan, but guess what? Wasim Akram was dropped. It's equal parts funny and tragic. In the end, the PCB got their act right. Their 3rd video featured both Imran Khan and Wasim Akram. But instead of an apology, they gave an excuse, a laughable excuse. I'll quote from what they've said. Due to its length, the old video was abridged and some important clips were missing. This has been rectified in the complete version of the video. How about that? As if none of us have ever used Twitter. It's clear why Imran Khan was missing from the video, the first video, because the establishment is after him. Not editing glitches, not duration issues, just plain old politics. Now, we don't know who made this decision. Did the army ask the cricket board to remove Imran Khan, or was it a voluntary call? Either way, it sums up politics in Pakistan. Once the army abandons you, nothing matters. You may have won a World Cup. You may have been Prime Minister. You may even have walked on the moon. None of it will save you. It's the worst kind of politics. Imran Khan has already been jailed on corruption charges. He's been sentenced to 3 years in prison. His political party has been destroyed from the inside. Dozens of his top leaders have defected. For most people, that would be enough, but not in Pakistan. The army has almost nullified Imran Khan, the politician. Now it wants to erase Imran Khan, the cricketer. This time, the fans stood up for him. But will the voters do the same? That is the big question. Pakistan's elections were supposed to be held by November this year, but that's not happening anymore. The dates have been pushed back. Their election commissioner says the constituencies have to be redrawn. There's a new census. So they will redraw constituencies. How long will that take? At least 4 months. The poll body is hoping that the process will be done by the 14th of December. Only then will elections be announced. And the army will be hoping to tie up all the loose ends by then. The loose ends being Imran Khan. Imagine the votes are counted and Imran Khan's party wins. It would embarrass the Pakistan army. So they have 2 options left. One is to rig the voting on a massive scale, or 2, wait out the storm. Keep breaking up Imran Khan's party and cadre. The first option has a downside, the rigging. You see, Western countries sent poll monitors to Pakistan. They've been doing so since 2008. So widespread rigging could backfire. Is that why the army is playing the long game? Well, it's certainly possible. This is all uncharted territory for them. Usually, when the army deposes leaders, they disappear. That's what happened in 2018. In the elections in 2018, Nawaz Sharif was disqualified, so Imran Khan's victory was guaranteed. But this time, there is no such guarantee. Imran Khan's appeal is still pending at the higher courts. Plus, his support base could go either way. He is a popular leader. As the PCB episode showed, Imran Khan, the cricketer, still has support. Twitter was flooded with criticism of the Pakistan Cricket Board, but will it be enough for him to pull off another 1992? Well, that final in Melbourne was a fair game. This one against the army will not be. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. The Indian Space Research Organisation has released images of the moon captured by the Vikram lander. It is the last leg of its journey to the moon. The touchdown is expected on the 23rd of August. In Malaysia, a private plane came crashing down. 10 people have been killed, including all on board. But it's not all grim news. Here's something to cheer you up. In Bolivia, puppies donned a dapper look to receive blessings at a church. And finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1920, the US Congress ratified an amendment that granted women the right to vote. This milestone was achieved after decades of struggle and protests. With that, we call it a wrap. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sí, lo quiero ceder, pero si les suelto el traste se va.
Los animales. Quiero dar gracias a Dios.